the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Finally, the OCF has come back to YouTube. Apologize for the long layoff. My wife's been sick, I've been sick, my whole family's been sick. My wife had COVID, my son had COVID. I didn't have COVID, but I had some variation of it, I think. But I'm back in the saddle again, as the old Aerosmith song once said. And I want to jump in here today, boys and girls, to talk about USC. Their fans have been imploring me to do a unbiased video upon them and their fortunes thereof, in my opinion, with Lincoln Riley. And I'm going to give them my honest opinion, and I'm not going to smack talk them or anything else like that. But I'm also still not going to back off and sugarcoat if I think that there's some areas that USC may need to look at going forward with Lincoln Riley. So, let's talk about it. Well, here we are again. Finally, after a 10-day layoff of being sick and having all sorts of other issues that I won't delve into and bore you guys with. But today, class, and oh by the way, I appreciate all the well wishes and prayers that everybody put out there for me. You never really know how much people like you until some shit hits the fan, right? But anyway, I want to come in here real quick because I've been implored by a few USC people to give them my absolute unbiased opinion upon USC and their fortunes going here forward with one Lincoln Riley and the rest of the people that came along with him. USC, to me, as far as being back in the national championship contender picture, and that's what we're talking about here. I'm not just talking about Pac-12 titles. Pac-12 titles are something that USC has been able to do with a regularity ad nauseum over the last 100 or so years, or however old that conference is. So conference titles are not going to be enough for most people in the USC fold out there. You see, because Lincoln was brought in with the idea of not only competing for conference titles, but he's going to compete for national championships. And they're hoping that this will be akin to the days of one Pete Carroll. Now, so far in the transfer portal, the players that were rated really highly that he got were Mario Williams and Caleb Williams. But that did not really impress a lot of people because they come from Oklahoma and they were players of his already. Now, the acquisition of Jordan Addison, sorry, still a little scratchy here. The wide receiver from Pittsburgh, that was a huge pickup. That in itself is probably going to help Caleb Williams go a long way in getting his feet wet and I guess getting simulated to a new situation, but not really since Lincoln Riley's there. Now, the recruiting for Lincoln Riley overall has been decent. It hasn't been overwhelming, but it has been pretty good. He has already picked up 2 5-stars already. I'm not going to go down the entire list of their recruits because they got a few 3-stars, and then they got one guy on here that's not even got any stars. I'm not sure if that's a glitch or a typo. I got this information from USCFootball.com. They picked up Malachi Nelson, who's a quarterback out of Los Alamitos. I may have butchered that. California, 6'3", 180-pound, 5-star quarterback, rated number 2 quarterback in the nation. So that was a big get. Because when Caleb Williams leaves next year, and he will leave next year, he may even leave this year. I'm not sure what his status is, whether he's a sophomore or a junior. they will have a highly rated quarterback to come in and take his place. But Lincoln Riley's always been really good at recruiting those kind of players in those kind of positions. Zachariah Branch of Las Vegas, Nevada. He's a wide receiver, 5'2", 172 pounds, number 6 wide receiver overall. He is also 5 stars. Once again, that will help Lincoln go a long way in replacing some of the players that he brought with him from Oklahoma, so that there's not a huge drop-off whenever he gets into his own recruits, and we see how really good Lincoln can be. The last 5-star, well, actually, he's not a 5-star. This guy is a 4-star. I put him on here because he, out of the, I think it was like 7 or 8 recruits that they have so far, is the highest rated defensive player that he's gotten so far. He's gotten a couple of safeties, but so far he's not been able to bring in the huge 4- and 5-star athletes on the defensive side of the ball, other than this guy right here, Braxton Myers, who is a safety out of Coppell, Texas, at 6'1", 185 pounds, 4-star rated, number 168, 68th safety out of this class. Now, my big problem with USC this whole time, as far as recruiting goes, is the fact that they haven't really went out and recruited any great offensive linemen yet. They do have this one guy that is an offensive tackle, and he's 6'7", 250 pounds. His name's Tobias Raymond, but he has no stars. Like I said, I don't know if that's a typo or what, but right now the guy has no stars, so it's hard for me to be impressed with that. They also picked up a couple of good running backs from Texas, and Quentin Moyer and Marion Peterson. So that'll give them a little bit of balance, hopefully. But it comes back to what I was saying before. What Lincoln is going to have to do is, whoever he has in charge of that area, he needs to get them amped up. He needs to get out there on the trail with them, because sometimes that's what has to happen to have a guy close, to be able to close somebody, especially with a new staff. You get the guy that has the big name and the oomph. Sort of like Nick Saban. Nick Saban, he sends out his guys. He's got certain guys that are assigned to certain players and sometimes certain positions. And if there's a question, and if he thinks that him coming out in person will close the deal, well, then Nick Saban will come out and help close the deal. And right now, I think Lincoln Riley needs to do a lot more of the closing deal kind of thing. He needs to be out there on the recruiting trail with his assistants to try to close the gap where it comes to offensive linemen and defensive players. Never had a problem getting offensive players to key positions like wide receiver and running back and quarterback. It's the positions that go unheralded that Lincoln has always had more of a problem with. Now, as far as USC's fortunes this year as a football team, going forward, I give them a lot of hell. Tell them they're going to go 5-7 again, or 4-8, or whatever it was they were last year. But in reality, I don't really believe that. If I'm going to give you an unbiased opinion on this, their schedule sets up pretty nicely for them, at least until the latter part of the season, when they have to play Notre Dame and UCLA. They do play Utah in the middle of the season, as my podcast partner Jonathan Lewis once said. And check his podcast out too, College Football with Jonathan Lewis. Pretty good podcast. If the Utah game had been in the earlier part of the year, that would have presented some huge problems for USC. With them breaking in new staff, new quarterback, not really, but because Caleb Williams already had pretty much his baptismal in the offense of Lincoln Riley, so you can't really call him a new guy. But I think that if Utah or UCLA or Notre Dame, any of those teams have been in the early part of the season, you might have a problem with maybe USC's confidence being shattered a little bit. They are 4-8. They have brought in a lot of new faces, but there are still some faces left over from that 4-8 team, and all it's going to take is one early loss or one bad loss to shake their confidence and make them think of 4-8 last year, in my opinion. So it's key here that USC gets off to a good start. If they get off to like 5-6, 7, 8-0 start, that'll bode well for them and their confidence going forward. Even if they were to pick up a couple of losses, at the end of the season to UCLA or Notre Dame. But early on, they play Rice, and that's probably going to be a gimme right there. Thank God for Rice, right? For the USC fans. That's a good way to get your feet wet. Then they play Stanford and Fresno State. Stanford beat USC last year by double digits. They beat them 42-28. Fresno State has always showed people problems and giving people issues, even though they're a non-Power 5 school. I remember one year they upset Wisconsin. They come really close to beating Oregon a few years ago, or either last year. So Fresno State's a team that they really need to watch, as well as Stanford. If they lose either one of those games, and it's possible that they could, then I think they could be in for a little bit less of a stellar season than what USC fans maybe had hoped for. Because it's going to, like I said, you still got a lot of players on that team from the 4-8 season, and one early loss could shake the confidence a little bit in the team and cause them to lose a few games that maybe they shouldn't. But I think they'll get off to a strong start. But in the end, I think they'll probably lose to Utah, maybe to UCLA and Notre Dame as well. So the best I see USC being next year, in my opinion, is 9-3. Could be 8-4. But I don't see it being any worse than 8-4. So that would mean that they reversed their fortunes. They go from 4-8 to 8-4, 9-3. Most schools will be happy with that. And I think the USC fans should be happy with that too. And they better show some patience, because they put their eggs in one basket with Lincoln Riley, in my opinion. Now, Alex Grinch, to me, the jury's still out on him. If he comes in, he has a horrendous year as a defensive coordinator, or just a little bit better than average, you may see him get axed within 1 year. And they may bring someone else new in. People have been talking about bringing Ed Orgeron back. I think that's a horrible idea. But if USC wants to dabble into that, that's fine. You know, do what you got to do. But I think it's a bad idea. But in the end, like I said, my prediction is I think USC will go either 8-4 or 9-3. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And also, up underneath here, if you look next to the like and share and the download options, right next to that is a little heart that says thanks. Hit that thanks button, drop a few dollars in the coffers. Help us get off this YouTube teat a little bit. And with that, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now dismissed.